Hi, everybody. This is Meryl Stewart, CEO of Marketing and Business Solutions. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm excited to talk about collaboration and strategic partnerships today. This is kind of one of those topics where some people cringe and some people are super excited, and it's kind of not a lot of in between. I wanted to talk about, I know in our business, we've had many clients, especially in the current economic environment, that are looking for opportunities to either merge or acquire maybe another business. Maybe they're looking at trying to expand the work that they're doing because there's a greater need out there, and they need some really strategic partners to align with so that they can do the work and do it well and better than maybe they could have done it on their own. But collaboration can sometimes be a scary venture for people because it's, especially if you don't know the partner well that you're engaging with in business. It might be kind of a scary thing because you don't know what to expect. You don't want to get burned. You're not sure if you're going to come to an agreement on expectations, or you're really looking to protect yourself. And all of those are totally natural things. Those are things I deal with in running my own business, in partners that I bring to the table to work on some of our client projects. And there is a process that I go through and many others that kind of help you determine what are the things I really need to be looking for to make sure that I'm picking the best partner. And what are some red flags and signals that maybe I should just leave this alone and let them keep moving on till I find a better partner. Some of these things I found this great resource, entrepreneur.com. They have some really great articles and content out there. So I wanted to share with you some of the steps that they have and then some of our own experiences that might help you make a good decision. And as always, if you have questions as I'm talking through this, or would like some clarification on something, or something very specific to your business that you'd like to ask, please put it in the comment section. I'll be happy to answer that as I go, and hopefully set you on the right path, or maybe give you an idea on where to go next. So, step one is to see past what's in front of you. So, a lot of times, especially when something's a little bit scary, we go into that experience kind of defensive, whether we want to admit it or not. And it's not necessarily the best place to come from the beginning. So, seeing past what's in front of you is really more of a focusing on abundance versus scarcity. So a lot of times we walk into something seeing only what we want to see and not necessarily seeing what we need to see. And so scarcity and abundance theory is really kind of around looking at strategic partnerships and collaboration from a place of abundance. What is it that people bring to the table in abundance that's going to help us move something forward, as opposed to what are all the things that we don't have and that we need and we may never have or never find? And how are we going to pull this off? If you start with that more negative mindset, it's a lot harder to move forward because you're always going to be analyzing things through that lens. Not saying you shouldn't ask those questions, but just something to kind of set aside. If you look at it from a place of abundance, then you're looking at the opportunities and the things that each of those collaborative partners or strategic partners bring together that is going to make it stronger in the end. So, yeah, it can cause anxiety. Yes, people can feel exposed or not sure, if they want to share information because someone else might steal it. All of those things are very real things that they happen. But if you start from a place of positivity, the likelihood of getting to the end of the process of developing a true collaboration with someone is likely to be better because you've started on a positive note. So, get your mind in the right place first. The second piece is to really be clear on what your why is. So, a lot of people say, like, what's your why? Well, it depends on the day. Depends on what you're asking me about. But in collaborations, each side has to have a very clear, defined why. They have to know why they want to be in partnership together, what they're trying to accomplish. A lot of times people enter into partnerships and they don't really feel like they have enough value on their own. And so they think, okay, well, if I partner with this person or this organization or this business, it'll make me stronger, it'll make me better. That's not necessarily the right reason to enter into a collaboration. It could be part of it from a strategy perspective, but it's probably not the underlying baseline reason of entering into something like that. So it has to be, you both have to come from a place where you're clearly defining what it is you want, why it is that you need it, and kind of seeing where there's this mutual benefit or this overlap in how it is that you can work together to mutually benefit each other. So, in that process, you're clearly defining your value, who you are, what you bring to the table. You're looking at, what it is that you want from the partnership, and the counterpart has to define what that is. And these two questions are really critical questions. If you can't answer these questions, then you kind of have to pause here and then come back to it, because if you don't answer these two questions, it makes it really difficult to move forward. So the first one is, why does this relationship benefit my professional or my personal growth? And it could be and what do I expect to gain from this partnership or collaborative effort? So if you can't answer those two questions, hit the pause button, do some research, get some other opinions, and then come back to it. Once you can answer those, you can move on to the next step. But you want to make sure that it's very clearly defined. If it's not, then everything else starts to fall apart after this point. So if you understand your why, the third piece is understanding the why of your partners. So you've defined yours, now they need to define theirs. And this is the place where it's difficult. I'm lucky to have an amazing collaborative partnership with a colleague of mine, and we have worked really hard to clearly define what we both want, and what we both need, and we're not afraid to question each other. But we've built it from a place of positivity and strength, that we're both headed down the same path and we're going at the same direction, and we do things in a similar fashion, that it just makes sense to work together on a number of different initiatives. But I understand what her why is. I understand what it is that she's trying to achieve, and she understands what I'm trying to achieve, and that alignment comes together. We can't make that a successful collaboration unless we're willing to ask each other hard questions. So this is that phase where you cannot hesitate to ask a potential partner or collaborator why he or she or it is seeking to connect, and what it is they're hoping to gain. That has to be on the table. If you can't have that discussion, I guarantee you it's not going to last for long. At least the partnership won't, because it may not be that the answers are super clear at the front, but you have to listen really carefully and pick up on what it is this person or entity is trying to achieve. If it aligns with where you're headed, then they might be the right fit. You can go on to the next step. If they don't, then maybe it's just that point where, nope, this is not really what I'm looking for. Thank you very much, and you move on to the next thing. If you sense resistance or lack of clarity from the other person, then just wait. Wait to make decisions. Ask more questions until you feel really comfortable about what it is that they're hoping to gain from working with you. Step 4 is, what do you have in common? So, do you have a shared vision? Is there a common goal? Is there if you collaborate or partner together, will it boost the vision for both sides, or will it help with growth in some fashion? Um, Things to be thinking about are, do you have the same excitement or passion even? Is one more passionate than the other? And is that okay? Is there something else maybe the other side provides that offsets, the strength of another? So this is the kind of the step where you're really looking at, what are the strengths of both sides? What are the weaknesses of both sides? Which I know it's hard to define that sometimes, and that makes us uncomfortable, but it's really important to be transparent in this process. What are your values? What is the passion or enthusiasm behind it? What is it that gets you guys excited about wanting to work together? And it's right when your strengths elevate a shared success. So my collaborative partner on some of my projects, we relish in shared success. I mean, that's kind of the baseline for where it is that we try to build our businesses and then work together on projects that it makes sense and we complement each other. But it's always around shared success, and if we focus on that, then we figure out the work. But if we can't agree on the points that we are going to determine have identified a project or an initiative or a collaborative effort as successful, then it makes it really hard to move forward. So it's right when your strengths together elevate a shared success. I think that's a great piece of advice. Step 5 is, take your time. This is not a rush. It's not a race. It's a marathon. Hi, Ryan. I see that you're on. she's my runner friend. It's not a race. Taking your time is really important. It gives you time to really assess whether or not all of the elements of a potential partnership, goals, strengths, weaknesses, enthusiasm, passion, the scary things that you're worried about, all work together. And sometimes when we rush through things, it really blinds us to kind of the red flags or potential issues that we're gonna face. I know that times that I have taken probably more time than I've wanted to work on something, it's always given me the ability to kind of see something very clearly and make a really good and probably better decision than if I had just rushed into it, assuming it was going to be okay, assuming that the partners were all on board, assuming that everyone was coming at it from a like mindset. It's not necessarily the case, but if you can take your time and really analyze it and assess it, then you can make a calculated decision and risk from that point. So thorough planning is really key in this, and it's important. Step 6 is expect to be uncomfortable. That feels awful. But it's true. This is not a, hey, we're all going to agree to something and we're never going to have to worry about challenging each other or talking about uncomfortable things. It's probably mostly going to be uncomfortable. But in all honesty, I have never met a project or a challenge in my personal or professional life that that wasn't uncomfortable at some point. And usually that discomfort led to greater growth, better success, better outcomes than I possibly could have imagined because I just sat with the uncomfortable feeling of being uncomfortable. And so expect push and pull. Expect that, you and this partner or collaborator are going to have hard discussions. Be clear, be prepared, stand firm, in your values and what it is that you want to gain from it, but also be willing to negotiate when it makes sense. If the partner is offering something that, makes sense for the two of you to agree upon, or multiple partners at this point to agree upon, then maybe it's worth negotiating that in, or maybe there's something that you need that they have that can be negotiated. So continue to look at it from a strength based kind of mindset, a growth mindset. And I think it'll be a better outcome because it's coming from a place of positivity and kind of goodwill and good feelings than a place of negativity of what do you have that I need. And once you kind of go there, it tends to fall apart. And the last step in this, and then, I'll talk about a couple other pieces, but the last step in this is to write things down. I've most times when I've entered into collaborative agreements, I'm the one that picks apart the agreements and looks for, all the ways it's going to fall apart. And really thinking, I think someone gave me this advice at one point, but it's really thinking about how do I want the breakup to go? So if this fails and falls apart, what does the breakup look like? And so it's important to write things down so that if that breakup point happens or comes at some point down in the future or everything falls apart, that at least you've agreed upon how you're going to separate. And so all those agreements should be in writing. If you have a partner or a collaborator who's not willing to put into writing, their wishes or their thoughts or sign that agreement, they're not the right partner. You walk away, you say thanks, handshake, and you move on to find someone else. One person can't agree to write it down and to sign it, and the other person says, "No, we could just do it on a handshake." That's like a red flag for no. You're valuing your integrity and your ability to walk away from something in with a good natured response instead of trying to figure it out, when everybody's already frustrated and upset. That's the worst time to try to figure out what to do next. So it's better if things are written down. Don't risk your integrity or your security for what's going to happen in the future. And hopefully it never comes. Hopefully you have an amazing collaborative, agreement and relationship, and it just continues to grow. So once you get into that collaboration, then the question is, okay, so now what do we do? We've decided we're going to collaborate. I found my dancing partner, and what are we going to do next? And so there's a few things that I think are just important things to keep in mind because any collaboration, it's a relationship, right? I mean, there's ups and downs, there's ins and outs, there's challenges. And so the first thing is to really make sure you communicate expectations. And that's not just, I'm not talking about the collaboration in and of itself. I'm talking about, so now you're working on something together. And so what is it that both sides are going to expect from each other? What are the individual goals and what are the collective goals? So let's just say you're a nonprofit organization and you're focusing on homelessness, in a certain part of the community, and you're decided to come to work together because you're stronger as a team. You really have to define what are the individual goals for each of the organizations and what are the collaborative goals for us as a team, as a group of people that are coming together. They are separate goals, and they both have to be defined. That at least lets everybody know exactly how they're going to be measured. How success is defined and how you're going to be measured by that. The second is to establish team goals that are quantifiable and measurable. So making sure that, okay, this is what our goals are going to be as a team. We want to affect change in these zip codes or in this geographic region, or it's this many people, or, whatever that looks like, that it's quantifiable and it's measurable. Otherwise, it's really hard to tell when you've gotten to your goal or how much further you have to go to get there. So that's important. The next piece is to leverage your team member strengths. So, I think about this from a when you have businesses working together or you have organizations working together. A lot of times, you know, we have these like kind of, you know, backhanded conversations about, well, so and so isn't pulling their weight, or they're not doing this, or they're not doing that. And I had an experience really early on in my career, and I was working for an organization, and there was someone on the team that no one wanted to work with. And it was because that person challenged everybody. And everyone kind of gave me the warning, said, look out for this person. It's awful. You're not going to believe how long it takes to do things, yada yada. And what I ended up realizing was that they were all focused on her weaknesses. And I'm sitting there looking at, okay, well, she's really good at a couple things. And those things she's good at, I really need on my team. So leveraging team members' strengths can make the difference between moving forward or being stuck. It's a really important skill to draw from. It's something you have to learn. It's something you have to pay attention to. You have to observe it. You have to listen. So it's not something that's just, someone writes down on a sheet of paper and it bubbles to the surface. Sometimes it is, but most of the times you really have to work on empowering each other and testing each other on what it is that they're really good at to make the team stronger. So focusing on their team member strengths is a great thing to leverage in a partnership or collaboration. And then building cohesion between team members. So a lot of times in a collaboration, there could be, fear of distrust, fear that, someone's going to steal your intellectual property and start their own thing or go sell it or start another business or, a million different things. But one way to kind of fight that is by creating cohesion in the team. If the team feels like they are all going in one direction and they are all bought in with passion and enthusiasm to get there, then, it makes it a lot harder for someone to kind of break away and do their own thing because they're engaged and they're excited and they're involved. So one way to do that is to involve team members in decision making. It creates this ability for them to feel empowered, but it also creates buy-in for them to then protect something that they've created. And so a lot of times, we worry about it, but if you can create team cohesion, it's a really, kind of fascinating thing that happens where they all then become very protective of what happens next because they've all worked so hard and put in so much energy into making it successful. So doing that is really important. The other thing with team members that's important is to encourage innovation. Let them think outside the box. I think the most difficult thing with collaboration is when um, you decide, okay, well, we want to affect change in this area, or we want to work on some kind of project, together. And then there's all these stipulations. Well, we can't do this, we can't do that, we can't do this. Being collaborative and working with someone else, the beauty of that is that you get to feed off of each other's creativity and innovation. It's not always going to be, that you choose one idea or that you move forward with something, but that process of feeling included and feeling valued and feeling an important piece of creation process and innovation process is kind of a vital element to feeling valued in the relationship. So encouraging innovation can take you to places that you never even thought. And I believe that, more minds are better than one. There's things that I'm really good at doing, but there's some things that other partners are coming to the table that are a lot better than me, or even think of it completely different and will take us in the direction that we need to go to solve the problem that we all came together um, to solve in the first place. The next piece of this is, and this is it's hard, but I think it's vital to running a business and in any partnership is to keep promises and honor requests. If you promise somebody something, you better, under promise and over deliver every single time. The outcome of what someone experienced should always be better than what you promised them, or at least be equal to what you promised them. If you start falling short on fulfilling your promises, then you start having, kind of uncomfortable conversations and issues within teams, within project management, within collaborative partnerships, because people feel let down. And they feel like, okay, you said you were going to do this and you didn't do it. How can I trust that the next time we're in this situation, you're actually going to do what you said you do? So it's always important to keep your promise. It's also important to honor requests. People can make requests, they can share ideas, but it doesn't mean that you have to move forward with them. But it is important that they feel heard. It's important that they feel important and part of the process, and that you value what it is that they have to say. That's an important part of just making people feel good about the relationship that they're in, and not frustrated with feeling like they can't say something or add to a conversation. So there's kind of an art to that, which could be a whole separate discussion, but it's a really important component. And then the last piece of this is to really recognize and reward and celebrate collaborative behavior. I think a lot of times, I know I've experienced this, is you get involved in a project, you're working really hard, everybody does a great job, in the moment you're celebrating the success, but then you kind of forget to go back as a group and reward and recognize the hard work and to celebrate the success in kind of a different way, from a more collaborative effort. And, it could be getting together and, having a call these days. It could be that, you send thank you cards, or, do some type of video thank you and send that out. I think it's really important that people feel valued and that they feel that the members of the collaborative group all appreciate and are willing to celebrate the successes together, because it makes them want to go and work again together to create more success. So if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments section. I know we kind of went through a lot of different pieces, but I hope that this better positions you as you're thinking about, okay, is this the right partner? Is this the right collaboration? How can I make it work really, really well? And then how can I really invest the time in the partnership, in the team members, in the people that are going to help me and help us, achieve success. So if you have questions, let me know. I will be happy to respond. Otherwise, we will see you next Thursday for another broadcast, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thanks so much. Bye bye.